All right, so these are the practice AP questions for the effects of government intervention, part 1. So let's get right into it. So question number 18 asks, in a competitive equilibrium, consumer surplus is the area of da-da-da-da-da. And so here, remember consumer surplus, right? Consumer surplus is anything above the price and below the demand curve. And so if we're looking at this graph on the right, where supply meets demand is at point Z, right? So that is going to be our equilibrium. And so here we know the base of whatever the consumer surplus is going to be is Y and Z, right? Because here our equilibrium is at point Z, right? If we just go all the way to the right, it's Y. And then remember, like I said, consumer surplus, right, is just the buyer's max minus the price. Or in other words, anything above the price and below the demand curve. So essentially, this red triangle is going to be our consumer surplus. And so what are the letters involved? Well, we have W, X, Y, and Z, and V, right? So V, W, X, Y, Z. Well, here, right, is U involved? No, because U is all the way out here, so U is not the correct answer. Is W, Y, and Z? Well, yes, right, because we have W, Y, and Z. So B, as in boy, is the correct answer here. And so that brings us to question number 19. So question number 19 asks, if a price floor is set at X, the quantity demanded will do what? Remember, a price floor, right, is only binding, or it's only effective if it is placed above equilibrium. So if we place the price floor at X, is this a binding price floor? Well, yes, because our equilibrium is at Z, and our price floor is placed above that. So it is a binding price floor, an effective price floor. So quantity demanded, right, started at Z, and then at the price floor, our quantity demanded is now at V. So our quantity demanded actually decreased here. I know it moved upwards along the curve, but remember, if we're looking at the demand curve, so if our demand curve moves from right to left, and that means it decreased here. So anything that has the word increased or not changed is incorrect here. So A, B, and E are incorrect. And so here it's asking, well, how much did it decrease by? Well, C is saying from 0S, right? So essentially this right here, 0S to 0R, right? So essentially 0S is at point Z, 0R is at point V, and yeah, that is correct. So C is going to be our correct answer here. Right? And so let's take a quick look as to why D is incorrect. So D as in dog is a decrease from OT, which is this, to OR, right? While yes, based on the price floor, our quantity demanded ended up at OR, it did not start at OT, right? Because OT goes all the way out to this point on the demand curve. So that's why D as in dog is incorrect. All right, part 3, or question 3. When the market is in equilibrium, the total economic surplus is equal to the area of what? And so remember, right, our total surplus is going to equal our consumer surplus plus our producer surplus. So total surplus is consumer plus producer surplus here. And so here, right, if we're just looking at this, at P2 is our equilibrium price. So our consumer surplus is anything above the price and below the demand curve. So we're looking at letters F, G, and H. Our producer surplus is anything below the price and above our supply curve, right? So our producer surplus is K, I, and J. So in other words, we're looking for F, G, H, I, J, and K, right? Because that is both the consumer and the producer surplus. And so our correct answer here should be D, because it has F, G, H, I, J, K. And so that is the correct answer. And our last multiple choice is question number 17. So following a prolonged power outage, the price of flashlights normally increases significantly. If cities had passed laws prohibiting price increase for flashlights during power outages, such laws would most likely do what? And so here, let's just draw it out, right? So if cities had passed laws prohibiting price increases, meaning, right, that cities do not want flashlights to become too expensive, well, is that going to be a price ceiling or a price floor? Well, that's going to be a price ceiling, right? Because a price ceiling is designed to prevent prices from coming up to equilibrium. So here, right, we have price, we have quantity. Then let's say this is the market for flashlights, right? So this is our quantity equilibrium and our price equilibrium. Well, here, if the question is saying that they passed laws prohibiting price increases, well, that means, right, that they created a price ceiling. And at our price ceiling, this is our quantity supplied, this is our quantity demanded. So our quantity demand is greater than our quantity supplied, so it creates a shortage of flashlights. So that's why B is the correct answer here. And so here, the reason why C and D is incorrect is because here, it's just prohibiting the price increases for flashlights, right? And so basically, remember, price is never going to shift the curve, so C and D is incorrect. A is not going to make sense either, right? If flashlights are now less expensive than what the free market says they are, or what the equilibrium prices it are, it's not going to create more flashlights. So A is also incorrect. And E, it should have an effect, right? If basically the prices just are below equilibrium, there should be an effect on the availability of it. All right, and so the last part is this 2015 FRQ. And so this 2015 FRQ had 4 parts, parts A, B, C, and D, and we'll go over each one now. So basically, on this graph to the left, right, we have the market for widgets, and the government is considered intervening in this market. And so part A asks us to calculate, right, the total producer surplus at the market equilibrium price and quantity to show your work. And so here, the calculate and show your work is important. You're only going to get partial points or no points at all if you do not show your work here. And so here, let's first look at where the producer surplus is. Well, first we have to look at equilibrium because right now the government nothing in the question is talking about a price control or any sort of price control whatsoever. So here where supply meets demand at $20 is going to be our equilibrium price. Well, our producer surplus, remember, is anything below our price and above our supply curve. So in other words, it's this triangle right here. And remember, producer and consumer surplus are not always triangles. And so now we can answer the question, right? And so what is the total producer surplus? Well, we're trying to find the area of this triangle, which is just 1/2 base times height. Well, we already know 1/2. Well, what's our base? Our base is from 0 to 20. So it's 20. What's our height? Yet again, it's from 0 to 20. So times 20. And so here, it's just 1/2 times 400, which gets us to $200. And so the total producer surplus, right, without any government intervention should be $200 here. Part B, if the government imposes a price floor at $16, all right, so let's say at $16, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, so 2, 4, 6, so $16 is right here. And this is going to be our price floor. Is there a shortage, a surplus, or neither? Explain. Well, for part B, right, the answer is, and let's write it up here, the answer is actually going to be neither, right? So why is there not going to be a shortage or a surplus? Well, because remember, price floors are only effective, or price floors are only binding if it is placed above equilibrium, because the point of a price floor is to keep goods expensive, to incentivize producers to produce more goods here. And so for equilibrium is here, our price floor, according to this hypothetical scenario in part B, is below equilibrium, so it's not effective. What are producers going to do? Well, they're just going to sell at this $20 equilibrium mark and ignore the $16 price floor. And so here, that's why there is neither a shortage or a surplus, right? Because price floor is only binding when placed above equilibrium. Right? All right, so let's move on to part C. So part C asks, well, instead of $16. Let's say the government places a price ceiling at $12. All right, so let's say right here is going to be our price ceiling at $12. Well, first off, is it effective? The answer is yes, right? Because a price ceiling is effective when it's placed below equilibrium here. So is this going to cause a shortage or surplus or neither? Well, here at this $12 mark, right, this is our quantity supplied. This is our quantity demanded. So we're going to say our quantity demanded is greater than our quantity supplied, which in other words means that there is a shortage of goods. And remember, it asks us to explain. So shortage because quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied because of the price ceiling, the effective or binding price ceiling. All right. And so the last question asks us, well, what happens if the government restricts the market output to 10 units? Calculate the deadweight loss, show your work. So here, 10 units is right here. So at 10 units, this right here is our quantity demanded. This right here is our quantity supplied. So if we just draw a dotted line all the way down, right, that represents how much the producers are going to produce, right, if the government restricts the market output to 10 units. Well, if you notice, right, we didn't go out. We're not maximizing consumer surplus, because if we maximize consumer and producer surplus, we would go out to equilibrium. And so that means, right, that this right here in purple represents the area of deadweight loss. Right? So this is deadweight loss. And deadweight loss is always a triangle. So in other words, right, if you're looking for deadweight loss, you're always trying to find that triangle right there. Well, here, right, it's asked us to calculate the deadweight loss. Well, if the deadweight loss is always a triangle, we're always going to use the equation 1/2 base times height. All right, so let's calculate this. So we have 1/2. Well, of this purple triangle, where's the base? Well, here, right, we'll show this in blue, right? So here, right, to here. So in other words, we're going from 10 to 20. So our base is just 20 minus 10. And then what's the height? Well, our height is, right, it's not at 0 because the triangle doesn't go all the way down to the x-axis, but instead it starts at 10 and then it ends at $20. So this right here is going to be the height of the triangle. So we are going to do 40 minus 10. So in other words, 1/2 times 10 times 40, which equals 1/2 times 400, which equals $200. So our deadweight loss is roughly about 200. Did I do that right? 10 minus, sorry, this should be 30. So 10 times 30, which is 300, which should get us to 150, right? This is what I get when I try to rush through my math here, right? So 40 minus 10 is 30, 20 minus 10 is 10. So 10 times 30 is 300. 300 times 1/2 gets us to $150. So our deadweight loss is a total of $150. All right, so that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys learned a lot outside of my silly math there, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.